Just a little bit of context or background, because Jason threw to me there. At the time, so this is 02, 03, 04, etc. The organisation I was working in at the time, which was a student services organisation, Monash University, was doing a little bit of work with a range of different people, which included Jason and a couple of his colleagues from Swinburne, and the graphic artist Jock McNeish, and as well. That was one of those. Okay, I want to talk about systems thinking. So slightly different focus, but I hope that you'll see some similarities. Start off with a couple of propositions. We work the way we work because of the way we think. We work the way we work together in our teams, in our groups, in our organisations. We work the way we work together because of the way we think together. So if we want to work differently, we need to think differently. And look, there are 101 or 1,001 lovely quotes, but the argument is that we need to provide different tools. So I want to take the approach tonight just to introduce a systems thinking approach through a tool. So what I want to do is basically this: what's this thing called systems thinking, and give you a brief explanation, I hope. How I came to it, and a little bit of background, because I think context is critical in all of these things. An overview of the field, because systems thinking is not one thing. I'll just give you that sort of overview as a bit of an umbrella of approaches, etc. Then I'll give you a definition or an explanation, which is going to focus around the notion of patterns. And then I'll introduce one particular tool. And hopefully that'll all be in about the remaining 4 minutes of my time. There's a little bit of background to me. So at the time I was working in the ATO, Commonwealth Public Service, and yeah, my model of management was not working. And I didn't want to do an MBA, in the sense that I didn't believe manipulating more spreadsheets. I'm not an accountant and I'm not a lawyer. I was in there for a particular different approach. But I didn't think the ATO needed another bloody MBA to make a difference. So I did a Masters in Organisational Systems at Monash University, finished, took 2 years off and did that, came back, and by this stage Howard had been re-elected early in 98, and I spent 3.5, 4 years working in Canberra on GST implementation, then ended up in Monash Student Services as a learning and development manager, did some PhD research there, and the last 10 years I've been teaching and doing a little bit of consulting. So, and the teaching is predominantly in the area of systems thinking, or systems approaches. So, systems thinking, you know, I didn't want to use the broad church because that phrase has been stolen by a certain political party, so we'll stick with an umbrella. There are lots of different systems approaches. I can talk about many of these, but the ones that I'm interested in are basically these down here around a particular approach that's called system dynamics. So for those of you who want to write something down or are thinking, oh, I'll do a little search, don't do systems, it's system without an S, dynamics. And you'll find where I'm at. There are a range of other things, but that's basically in the 20 years since I keep coming back to this because it makes the most sense to me in most situations. But I don't just do this, I steal from, I borrow, beg, steal, and do things that work for me. So I want to tell you 2 stories, and I might need to refer to my notes here, just in case here. So I want to start off using the analogy of a family to try and explain systems. And I want you to remember 3 words, and they'll pop up as I press buttons here. Interrelationships, perspectives, and what we call boundaries or system boundaries. And I think family is a good example because we're all a member of a family. You are all members of a family. But have you ever seen in a family, your family, my family, a family, where people, that family's producing results that no one intended? You know, there's conflict, there's issues, the way people act, the way they feel. How does that happen in a family? Why does that happen? It's the way people act. It's the way that people are connected, the way they interact, interconnected, the way they're related or they're interrelated, the notion of interacting and interdependency. And that's the first term that I want you to remember. There's only probably 4 things I want you to remember, and there are going to be three here and one on another screen. Systems are about interactions, interdependence, interconnections, whatever the word is. We tend to talk about interrelationships. So, against that background of we all end up with outcomes in a family or an organisation or a community or a business or whatever it is, but stick with the family that nobody wants, then different people, if we want to explore that, can actually tell their perspectives. And I think, Frank, you were talking about different people coming at things. It's a good idea, it's a bad idea. Sorry, it's a bad idea, it's a good idea. Different people have different perspectives. And that's the second, that's the second element of a systems approach. There are different ways of looking at a situation rather than one unitary approach or one singular approach. So a systems approach means looking at multiple realities, multiple perspectives, and trying to look at that to make different senses, a different sense, of what the interconnections are. Now, family is a fairly close-knit entity. You know, most of you could probably list the perhaps 5, perhaps 10, perhaps 15, a few more, a few less, of your immediate family. We put a little, what we call a systems boundary around that. System boundary around that. Because one of the other things that sometimes gets mentioned in systems, everything is connected. And at one level it is, but it's not very it's interesting, but it's not very helpful. So when we take a systems approach, we actually say, we're focusing on this. So from a family, we're focusing on the immediate family, and what we're not including is our nephews and nieces. Or we are. So we draw a systems boundary. And these are the 3 things when we take these are the 3 things when we take a systems approach that we're looking at. The interactions, the different perspectives of that, but what we include and what we exclude in terms of that. And what we're looking for is patterns of behaviour. We're looking for patterns that when we can see how things change and evolve over time. So how did this conflict between my wife and her sister develop over time, for example? Or between me and my brother develop over time? Or between marketing and sales, if we want to use a business example. How did that develop over time? And that's what we're trying to understand and look for the causal relationships that lead to that pattern of behaviour. That when we see those, they actually give us some insight into not only what's happening and why it's happening, but then using some other tools to pick up what we think we can do to improve the situation, points of leverage, some of those sorts of things. So systems, interdependence, perspectives and boundaries. Boundaries relates in systems language to critical systems. So who we include, the view. A nice example I would use here is if we're having a conversation about unemployment. What about the unborn children? Who includes those? Or do we include those? Or should we include those? So it's questioning our thinking. Or who said assumptions? Somebody said assumptions before and they've moved seats. The assumptions. We're checking our assumptions. And do we need to include this or not? So that's that particular element. So in any systems, they're the 3 things, looking at that as a triangle, if you like, and sitting in the centre of those are a range of different tools and techniques. And we've heard from the different speakers tonight of some particular techniques. The one I want to talk about from a systems perspective, and I've probably already blown my 5 minutes, so I'll be very quick, is the systems thinking, what's referred to as the systems thinking iceberg. So another, if you do systems thinking iceberg, you'll find some material around this one. And the metaphor of the iceberg is we tend to only notice the top of an iceberg, and if you go into your favourite search engine or Wikipedia, depending on the salinity of the ocean, the temperature, a whole range of things, an iceberg, anywhere between 70 and 90% of an iceberg is below the surface. What we're trying to do in systems thinking is to get below the surface, to see things that are otherwise hidden. And we go events, so we live in a world of events. Now, when I was first introduced to this, we used to talk about the daily news or the newspaper. But today you could talk about social media as well. You know, something happens today and then it's gone. Or it might last for 2 or 3 days and then it's gone. So that's the world of events. What we're trying to look for, however, is what's the pattern of behaviour? Have we seen this before? A couple of people have used the example. Ever been in a meeting where we've wasted time or whatever, the 15-minute meeting has gone, whatever. Have we seen this over and over again? And if we have, we've got a pattern of behaviour. So what's causing that? What's the deeper systemic structure? That's the language you use. But what's the causal structure that gives rise to this problematic pattern? And then underneath this is this idea of a mental model, which is how we think. What is our thinking that says it's okay to let a 15-minute meeting run for an hour and a half? Got a bloody agenda, we've got the right people in the room, got a decision to make. What is the thinking that allows those? Perhaps it's right, perhaps it's wrong. But in terms of that hierarchy, this is where the leverage is at this deeper level. In a systems thinking iceberg, and I just grabbed this image, you know, we've got design thinking and we're about to hear about design thinking, transformation. Look, all these are just different buzzwords for different things. Events, patterns and structures and the deep mental model, the thinking that put those structures in place in the first place. So my last story relates to a party. Now we're going to have a few aperitifs, few drinks, whatever. But imagine while I've been talking, there's been a room created over here, separate room. And there's a hallway running between our group and over there. And Bill says, Rod and Bill say, okay everybody, to get to the party, you've got to go down the hallway. Now, you can walk together, you can walk singularly, you can walk with your new friend, doesn't really matter, network, whatever, but you've got to go in a hallway. So imagine a hallway. Now, the walls of that hallway are the physical structure that's going to shape and influence how you get from here to there, shape and influence your behaviour. Now, by the way, Bill, if we built a few stairs, 7 flights up, 7 flights down, or 1 flight down, people be climbing a lot of stairs to get up. Structure is going to channel out what we have to do to get from here to there. So this is events, patterns and structures. What's that causal structure? Now, what I do, unbeknownst to Bill, is to get a few tradies in. About 10 metres down here, we narrow the wall down. So someone who was walking along like this, suddenly it narrows. And one person walking sideways, deep breath, tippy toes, can get through, and then it opens up again and we can continue on. Point of that is, can you understand by changing the structure of that hallway, I change the behaviour of the people getting from this room to that room? I hope so. Because that's the point. That's the physical structure. Now, Bill has a policy he hasn't actually shared with you all yet. It's a very simple policy, Bill, isn't it? Would you like me to explain it to you?
Please do.
Yeah, please do. Okay. So, last 5 in. It's a simple policy. Last 5 in. You pay attention here, Jason, because this could affect you.
Sure.
Last 5 in, you don't get to drink, you don't get to eat, you've got to serve and clean up.
Yep.
The argument is the proposition is, that policy, or can you see that that policy will change the behaviour of the group of people here when the last 5 of you don't get a drink, don't get to eat, you'll serve and clean up, get from this room to that room? Hopefully the answer is yes. So structures can be physical, but they can be policy, they can be cultural, they can be attitudinal, they can be intangible. It's about how we move from this room to that room. That's what a systems thinking perspective is if we can look at the structures, and those structures drive and cause the pattern of behaviour, then a systems approach is what we try to do. And that's probably now 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know how long it is, but that's enough.
That's
so we'll
right.
leave it as there. Thank you very much.